We just had a siren. We just had a siren. How do I see how much people are here?
Well, first you don't. You just talk because they might be tuning in later.
Okay, there's 0 people. So we just had a siren and we had to go. We didn't go to the bomb shelter. We went to the staircase. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. But yeah, I had school today. And now Mom will take over because I don't know what to say.
Come on, you know what to say. We just had sirens.
I just said that.
Jerusalem is under attack. That's what you say. Clickbait, you know.
Someone's in here. 2 people. Ah! 2.
How exciting when you have 2 people watching live. Hi to whoever is watching live, and hi to whoever is going to join us later. Oh, Bethany from Southern California waving. So I don't know if you guys heard, if you get your still red alerts, the red alert system has been dormant for a long time, but it has come alive and how in the last couple of days. So I said, what was I on 2 days ago?
Mimi!
2 days ago, I said that the war is back on, and this is, Israel took a decision to just go back into Gaza, saying we're just going to do a military operation that's going to be better than the best way to accomplish all their goals, although there are several theories about that, which I could get into later. However, it's not just now Israel's in Gaza and Hamas still has rockets and they launched 3 today. And the Houthis are back at it, despite the fact that President Trump is apparently, has given them all sorts of ultimatums, for, again, the Houthis and Iran, which is like a main funder of the Houthis. Trump gave an ultimatum to Iran saying, if you don't take care of your little proxy group here, you're going to pay the consequences. But nobody's listening right now. And at 4 a.m., there were sirens all over from south to, central of the country, from east to west almost. We didn't hear it here, by the way, 4 a.m. Thank God. We should need to hear sirens, right? But we didn't hear it. But I know somebody who lives 2 streets up over that way, and I know somebody who lives 2 neighborhoods over that way, and they heard sirens. And so that was the 4 a.m. wake-up call. It was all the way from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv and then south of there. And that was from Yemen. So apparently it didn't make it into Israeli airspace, although that's all, then people say they saw this or that or whatever. It's hard to tell what's truth anymore these days, isn't it? So sorry, there's a lot going on. Dinner as well. So there were 3 from Gaza. Now, you might be asking, does Hamas still have weapons, or how do they still have weapons? But they do, and not just rockets, but the quote long range for Hamas long range, because they went up to Tel Aviv area, and usually like Hamas's usual rocket range is to the communities around the Gaza Strip in southern Israel, and just like maybe within like a 10-mile radius, but Tel Aviv is like 50 to 60 miles or something like that. So that's unbelievable that they still have those capabilities, and they shot 3 of them. So with Israel's decision to go back to the war, everybody was like, all right, let's go back to war. So suddenly we've got rocket alerts. Oh, I got somebody calling me. Hold on, I think I can keep talking. Okay, so suddenly we have rocket alerts. Suddenly we are opening public, bomb shelters. And it's like we have just gone all like full back into war. Oh, it's Tony's mom. She's probably calling to ask me about the rockets. So here, Raya, can you call Nene? Can you call Nene? She just called me. So okay, so sorry, bear with me. There's a lot going on, and dinner and all stuff like that. So this is all going on to the backdrop of what like ever since the government decided to go back to war, there have been protests on the streets. So I'm sure we'll be seeing some of it right now. Oh, and so much more. Qatar Gate. Look, oh my gosh. So, hi, Caroline.
Yeah.
All right. So, what we also have going on, I mean, country erupted into protest. There's all sorts of different things going on. There was.
She called dad. Dad called her, and then she called him back.
Oh, okay. Did she hear the sirens? Oh my gosh.
She said everything okay. Dad called her.
Oh, sometimes she doesn't hear the sirens. Okay. So, hi, Arlene. Cool. Thank you for checking in on us. Yeah. So the country has erupted into chaotic protests. It really started when we woke up Tuesday morning, I believe it was, or was it Monday? I'm getting like the day. It's one very long week that went by very quickly as well. But I think it was between Monday to Tuesday night that the cabinet decided we're going to go back to war. And so we woke up in the morning to just the announcement that Israel was bombing Gaza, and that schools are closed in the southern Israeli communities, and that the home front command guidelines have been changed. So we're like, well, I mean, it's not just like let's just do a little bombing. It's like we're also going to shut things down because we know what the consequences could be. So that was like serious. But then the question is, what would the response be? Well, here we have it, because it's one thing for Israel to decide, okay, no, the ceasefire's off. We don't want to bother negotiating for the hostages now. We're just going to go in and wipe out Hamas and and anything in our way. I think there were a couple quotes. I have to get you the quotes. I have them somewhere here. So Hamas, now we know, what Hamas has to say to that. We also know what the Houthis have to say to that. And that's like, but because what's happening with the Houthis. Here's the Houthi. Oh no, wait. Oh, that was Hamas. Sorry, I read that really fast, and that was wrong. That was Hamas. So the Houthis have, despite they're getting pummeled by the U.S., the U.S. is actually attacking Houthi sites in Yemen because of what the Houthis did all during the war, where they went after ships in the Red Sea, and were just like randomly shooting or going after Israeli ones, but sometimes getting American ones and whatever. And so America was like, no, we're not going to take this anymore. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, this is what Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said. The Air Force strikes against Hamas terrorists were just the first step. Things will become much more difficult, and you will pay the full price. He's addressing this to Gazans. So he says, if the hostages are not released and Hamas is not removed from power, Israel will operate with strength you have not yet seen. Take the U.S. president's advice, return the hostages and remove Hamas, and other options will be open for you, including leaving for other places in the world for those who desire. The alternative is total destruction and ruin. As if it could get any worse in Gaza. Here is a little scene you haven't seen for a while. There tents where people are living displaced. So yeah, so it's a full-on war. So let me get to what the absolute angst that is going on in Israel is that there are still 59 hostages, 35 who have been confirmed deceased, and 24 that are hoped to be alive, and signs of life from about 19 or 20 of them. Oh my gosh, Hanel, wow. Thank you for tuning in. It's so good to kind of see you and miss you. So, I mean, I miss you. Here's the Houthis. Wait, I said Houthis before. There they are. That's I think he's the spokesman, the military spokesman. So, anyway, when we woke up to this news that Israel had just decided that they're going back to war, the country erupted into protests, and they are still going on. So, wow, does that mean it would have happened on Tuesday to Wednesday? Or in any case, no, yeah. So it was Tuesday to Wednesday. Wednesday, all day protests. Thursday, all day protests at the Israeli Parliament, at the Knesset. People were, I mean, they marched up from other cities, like through Jerusalem to get there. There's been traffic. Even like Daniel's bus was affected, just where he goes, like after school, getting back and forth. They canceled afternoon programs for some kids. The city was basically shut down. And there's so much more than just the war. There's so much going on. So this is all happening. This decision to go back to war came like right around the time that Netanyahu said he was going to fire the head of the Shin Bet, Ronen Bar. So that was starting to get people very upset, and like, how could this happen? And so part of the protest is against him firing. So the Shin Bet is the internal security. It's like the FBI of Israel, and so Netanyahu said that there's no faith, no trust between us. He said that his agency failed on October 7th, and so we have to clean house and get him out of here. Now, the government, Netanyahu's government, also wants to get rid of the attorney general, and that's been going on for a while. They also recently, fired the defense minister. I think that was back in December. So now there's a new defense minister who's, of course, from Netanyahu's party in the Knesset. And then there was also the chief of staff has been replaced, the IDF, the Army Chief of Staff. And then on top of that, the probably most loved figure at this point in all of Israel, like as far as in any sort of public position, the spokesperson for the army, who was every night like on the news doing briefings, and he didn't, he was, I don't want to say he was neither lovable nor despisable. Like, it's not like, but he was just very neutral, and he just felt like very, I don't know, like the country sort of, you could just see people turn to him as their source of information. He was there every night, whereas Netanyahu didn't do like any press conferences or like for the longest time. By the way, here's the Gazans setting up their tents. I mean, for who knows how long. So the Israeli Saturday Night Live, I love to talk about this show. It's funny, but it's like all ironic. It's called Eretz Nehederet, what a wonderful country. They had a skit in the beginning with Netanyahu. It's very anti-Netanyahu. I mean, you just have to take it with a grain of salt. But they showed like he had a board of like crossing out like all the people that he's fired, so, or that he needs to get out of the way, so that it can, blame them for October 7th, and so he gets them out of the way and he can't get blamed, and he's surrounding himself with loyalists and stuff like that. So the protests that are going on are all about this as well as the hostages. Now, it should be obvious based on the testimonies of hostages who have come back that this sort of action endangers the lives of the 24 hostages that are still there. I mean, it's something that, like, when they came back, the ones who've come back said that when there were military attacks, when the army got closer, or when there were political decisions made that didn't sit well with Hamas, that they would take it out on the hostages. They would beat them, they would withhold food. Of course, the ones who are left are all men, between the ages of like mid 20s to maybe 40, 50. Their fathers, their sons, like some of them have young kids. And, the people who are protesting are saying that up until now, military operations have not served to get back any hostages, or very few hostages, just 7 actually. So they're saying that that we need to go back to the negotiating table. You must negotiate to get them out. Now, what happened was people are saying, like, who broke the ceasefire? Was it Israel, or was it Hamas, because they didn't agree to the Witkoff plan? And there was the first phase had happened of this ceasefire agreement, which was to release 33 hostages, of whom 8 were deceased. And after that, they were supposed to go back to the negotiating table. Now, the hostages were released. What was the last round, like 2 or 3 weeks ago? And then there was like nothing. And yet, so it was like, okay, so the ceasefire is still going. Nobody's fighting. Israel has withdrawn, from a lot of the areas of Gaza. And then came the issue. Steve Witkoff, the U.S. Envoy, was saying, okay, Hamas, just release all the hostages now, like just continue to do this 3 a week, release 3 more a week. And Hamas didn't do it. And so Israel said, okay, well, you're not abiding by the agreement. But actually the agreement wasn't to just continue the current thing. It was to negotiate the second phase. And now the second phase is a lot more complex, because it would determine the future of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So Israel at some point was withholding aid, turned off electricity into the Gaza Strip, because Israel does control all entry points into Gaza and also controls the flow of electricity and water. So they turned that off to pressure them, and the pressure didn't work. So that's when, apparently they decided to go back to war. So the effects of that are that we have gone backwards a couple months. Now, I can't say that our lives are pretty normal here in Jerusalem. For the most part, we're normal and will probably be normal. But for the people who live in border communities, like around the Gaza Strip or around Lebanon, it will definitely be more complicated. And also, if Hamas has more weapons, and or if the Houthis will continue to fire ballistic missiles from 1,000+ miles away to Israel, then yeah, our lives will be a little bit different. Be interrupted every so often by sirens. Now, the Gazans are still, like, they still hadn't even fully returned to their homes. Many of them don't have homes to return to. There has been no decision made by anybody as to what's going to happen. I mean, Trump's plan was like, oh, why don't you all leave and I'll make a Riviera, and unknown about whether or not you come back to it, or if me and Elon Musk are going to be sitting there on the Mediterranean. Then the Egyptians had a plan to just pour a bunch of money into it. Of course, the Egyptian plan does not involve any Gazans leaving Gaza, because that would mean they go to Egypt, and Egypt has said no to that. So anyway, just various plans, none agreed on, nothing moving forward. I don't know, what what kind of reconstruction can be done, and are there supplies. So many of them will remain, I don't know, intense for a while, I guess. I just vague and unclear. All right, let me do a quick rendezvous here with all my millions of groups to see if there's any crucial bit of information that I've missed over the last couple of hours. Nope, sirens, we got that. No, I reported that. Okay, let's see. Oh, you guys know what's happening in Turkey? There's like crazy protests there against Erdogan because also he arrested his main opponent, I think the mayor of Istanbul. So let's see what happens over there. Oh, okay, here's a question from Carol. Any missiles being launched from the north? No, thank you. I was going to say that before. I was going to actually talk about the fact that the ceasefire Lebanon has held, Lebanon with Hezbollah, Lebanon, has held since the end of November. And that is going well. However, people do say that Israel's breaking the ceasefire because they do forays into into both Syria and Lebanon, and but they haven't. But there has been no Hezbollah fire back at Israel. There, by the way, though, Hezbollah is anti the rebels in Syria. They actually were the dominant ones in Syria back like during the Civil War. And so the hatred just festered between the rebel groups and Hezbollah. So now Hezbollah is actually had done some cross-border fighting between Lebanon and Syria against the rebels, which were massacring and maybe still are the Alawites and other people that they don't like because they're, whatever. I won't go into the whole Syria mess right now, how they have like this former wanted terrorist is now an accepted leader that foreign leaders go and shake his hand. Okay, so 2 sirens in central Israel, 1 siren is sent as a result of, that's at 2:00 in the afternoon. There's still negotiations going on in the background, but and then there is Qatar Gate, which is also, so Israel's just erupting. Like, it's so funny because we were driving home the other day and I was saying, so there's traffic everywhere because of the protests. What are the protests about? I'm like, take your pick. Like, against, the war because the hostages are going to be killed, against the firing of the head of this, against the firing of the head of that, whatever. And I said, there were several things. There were 3 or 4 things. And they said, so not against whether or not the Haredim should be enlisted into are the Haredim protesting, they're the ultra-Orthodox Jews, that they're going to be enlisted into the army. And I'm like, no, it's the only one that's not protesting, actually. Then later on, I read that they were, but not in Jerusalem, somewhere else. So I was like, oh my God, like every faction is protesting today. So but Qatar Gate. So it's going to be hard for me to explain it because when I was very comforted today when I listened to the radio and they were talking about like this whole thing with Qatar, or what's happening is that nobody really understands it because can I get my water? Can you give me my water, please? Because it's like, what's the word when it's like in court and it's sealed. The records are sealed. So
I'm gonna go eat some chicken.
Make sure it's cooked because I just shut it off because I didn't want it to burn, but I didn't want to dry it out. Oh my gosh, the protests in Turkey. Large protests. So that's in Turkey. French Foreign Ministry calls on all French citizens to leave Iranian territory. Very interesting. Hamas published its launches, so they're taking full credit for that. Physical confrontations in the Turkish parliament between members of Erdogan's party and the party of the mayor of Istanbul. Very interesting that could happen, and if something happens in Turkey, because Erdogan's been in for a long time. Okay, so I don't know, Qatargate, I'm going to have to do another time. Okay, so, and then, it's also Ramadan, and that's when it's the month on the Muslim calendar. They fast from sunrise to sunset, fasting food and water, and so that kind of impacts whatever's happening in Gaza, and also the Muslim prayer on the Temple Mount. And so what was happening on the Temple Mount during the rockets. Okay. Okay, and there was also one of the hostages who was just recently released. His name is Eli Sharabi. He came back to find out that his wife and 2 daughters were killed. So right now he didn't know that. By the way, he was in captivity for about 500 days, and he didn't know. So came back and found that out, and now he's just putting all his time and energy into going around and speaking and just rallying support and trying to raise awareness. And he was just at the UN today, and he, gave his account of how he was treated, how little food he was given, how they had to choose some days between a quarter of a pita and a cup of tea. And that was all they had for about 24 hours. He said our entire existence was about begging to have more food, begging to just go to the bathroom. So, all right, I've got somebody here, Jay, asking what's happening in the Armenian quarter with that court deal. Well, if you're talking about the parking lot, I think it's just still in court, and I don't have an update on that. But I should check and just make sure I'm not missing anything. But usually I would hear announcements, or I'd hear it. My husband's a little bit kind of connected, so I might hear something, but I haven't. So, but I'll check. That's a good question. Okay. U.S. forces seem to be attacking Yemen as we speak. So anyway, all that to say, we're going to go to sleep tonight. We're going to have shoes ready, so we don't go crazy looking for shoes when we run out in the middle of the night. Going to have jackets or sweatshirts near the door, and just in case. Now, again, Jerusalem, we don't get a lot of sirens, so it may not be that bad. It may not be anything to worry about. So that, and if you're really interested in like nitty gritty Israeli news, go read about what's happening with the person who worked in the prime minister's office, but actually apparently didn't get a paycheck, but was acting as a spokesperson in the prime minister's office, talking to the press, somehow was getting paid by a lobbyist for the government of Qatar, the lobbyist in America, and the money was coming from Qatar, somehow funneled through, don't know how much, don't know what it was about, but apparently he worked for a company that was a PR company that was trying to improve the image of Qatar, which is the host of Hamas, the wealthy Hamas leaders. That's where they lived for years, and it's the home of Al Jazeera, actually. They're trying to improve the image of Qatar in Israel. I didn't know that was a job. I didn't know you could apply for a job like that. Like, I want to improve this regime's image in an enemy country. and then he works in the prime minister's office somehow. Like, it's just, and this is a guy that was formally arrested and is still under investigation for leaking documents to right-wing media that would be publishing pro Netanyahu articles, and it was under investigation for leaking these documents to the media. So, to specific outlets in the media. It's just bizarre, and this has been going on, I think, since for a couple months now. But now this thing about Qatar has just come up. Anyway, I found it so fascinating, and I was wondering, how come I can't figure out what's going on? And then I heard this morning, on the radio, it was like, the records are sealed, or the investigation is sealed, and nobody knows, how he was an employee, but was he paid or not paid? How much is he getting from Qatar? All this stuff. Anyway, and does it reach Netanyahu? So the country is just a little bit fed up. Most of the country, a lot of the country is fed up with Netanyahu, because they felt like, just as we were about to make a deal and we got closer, he went back to war, and his going back to war, bringing the country back, brought Itamar Ben Gvir and his party back into the government, giving Netanyahu's coalition 68 seats, a solid majority. You need 61, but now he has a solid majority. And this comes as they are about to pass a budget very soon, and some of the judicial reform that was very controversial before October 7th, and possibly fire the head of the Shin Bet, which might happen this evening. And they want to also go after the attorney general. So this is why the country erupted in protest. It is just like a cornucopia of issues that all feed each other. So anyway, I'm going to end it there. I'm overloaded. I don't know about you.
The chicken is amazing.
Thank you, Raya. So thank you for checking in. Thank you for watching. And if you're just tuning in now, go back and catch the beginning. Spoiler alert, there were sirens in Jerusalem tonight. And anyway, thank you very much for tuning in, and I will catch you. Stay tuned, because it looks like we ain't going anywhere.